back in the day, it probably, which I had Bob Tallman on, it was cigarettes, and Crown Royal loosened up his announcer's voice.
Think all the greatest singers of all time, Merle Haggard and all those guys smoked for years, so maybe that's the trick.
Rodeo time. Hey, hit that subscribe button now. You're going to like it. Welcome to the Luke Branquinho Show. My next guest is a guy that has been climbing the charts on the country music scene. He's a good friend, and we're also using his song as our intro, which Chancey, I really appreciate that, man. Chancey Williams, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, and thanks for using the song. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome just to be able to kind of get that country feel, which I know you as an artist, that's what you're all about. And we're going to get into some personal stuff here, but I want to talk about you as an artist wanting to stay with the country music roots.
Yeah, for sure. It's all I know. I just try to sing about stuff that I know about, try to stay in my lane when it comes to country music. And, growing up on a ranch and rodeo my whole life, I tend to sing about that stuff.
Well, but I think honestly, and the country music fan genuinely wants to hear that. I mean, and no offense to the tight, skinny jean wearing country music artists, and again, no disrespect to them. Me as a country music fan would way rather hear about that type of country music. Yeah,
it's for sure. And I guess there's just certain lingo that Cowboys, the way we talk, how we say things, and a lot of times I'll get pitched songs from Nashville that, some great writers have wrote maybe, but they'll write a Cowboy song and it's just stuff we wouldn't say, being right. Cowboys, well, we would never say that. So where all my friends and family are all in the, Western way of life, it would be silly for me to sing some of those. So it's better for us to write stuff with the real cowboy lingo in it that cowboys like you or whoever's going up and down the road or ranching can relate to, oh yeah, man, that's how we say things.
Well, and I think the fan, the non-country cowboy fan, not non-country, but the non-country people that want to be country and want to be fans, I think they pick up on that and they're like, wait a second, that sense coming from a real cowboy, and then you hear somebody else singing something like, wait, I don't get it, and that's what I appreciate about it, because now with your, I talk about this, actually I haven't talked about Yellowstone in a while, which is weird because it's been such a huge, right. thing for the Western world. But when they hear you singing about that and seeing the Yellowstones and seeing how the Western way of life is.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, all about authenticity, so people can see right through that stuff a lot. And I think it's guys like me and some other artists' responsibility to sing the correct stuff, to show the people that aren't in the Western way of life how it really is. Right. And so, it's got to be fairly accurate as far as the stories go and the songs we write. So it's special to me just to be authentic, because I think, like you said, with Yellowstone coming out, a lot of people in the world are striving for something authentic nowadays. They want to see behind the scenes of a rodeo cowboy or a rancher or a farmer. And so they kind of want to see behind the curtain. And it's, right. I guess where I grew up in, I feel like it's my responsibility to sing to them that way of life.
Well, and you sing to them that way, but you also have a guy that, and I know I got to meet a couple months ago, I guess, but Trent Willman helping write those songs and bringing them to life.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome, meeting up with Trent. He's produced my last 3 records, and finding somebody that knows the cowboy way of life or that knows the Western lifestyle to write with, because, it's hard to explain that to, say, a hit songwriter in Nashville that's never been on a ranch, trying to explain to them some of these moments or some of these phrasings that we use. Right. So, but a guy like Trent, he's just like us. So he can do that. I've been writing with Bryce Long, who's team roped a long time. So finding those guys to write with that are great songwriters that also know our lingo is super important.
Yeah, well, and knowing your lingo, obviously, for the folks that are watching the show that don't know, bronc rider, cowboy, grew up on a ranch. You've lived the life before you even started singing about the life.
Yeah, for sure. We have a ranch in Moorcroft, Wyoming, and just grew up, we were riding, horseback when we were 4 and rodeoing all the way through college and out of college. So like just being around the scene, as anybody that's been in rodeo or ranching knows, it's hard to explain to other people how it is, that way of life. You just kind of have to live it for a while.
Right, and then you could sing it and kind of explain it to the folks in song. And starting out in high school with your band, is that correct?
Yeah, we started out just kind of for fun. I was rodeoing all these high school rodeos, and so we had this band. We just kind of started for fun. So the band would just kind of tag along to these high school rodeos that we would set up, maybe in a campground or some show barn somewhere, and everybody'd show up. We weren't very good, but it was something to do.
Well, obviously it's taken off, and I got to go to your concert at Billy Bob's. It was, I can't remember, it was during, I was there doing some TV stuff, but that was one of the coolest concerts that I got to go to. And not saying that because you're a friend and you invited me to it, but just to see how you interacted with the fans, with the way the fans interacted with you. And I believe was that your first time playing Billy Bob's?
Yep, it was our debut at Billy Bob's. That's one that we've had on the list forever to play, just because it's the biggest honky tonk in the world. Anybody's played Billy Bob's, so we really wanted to cross that one off the list. So it was, I think it was during the PBR finals, and
yeah, that's right.
It's a huge room to fill, and we're not from Texas, so to get the amount of people that came, we were super happy. It was a great show, a great night, and thanks for coming.
Well, yeah, but one thing about that concert that I absolutely loved, you introduced your band, and then they came on, and I maybe had a few Coors Lights or Coors Bucks, I can't remember, but they came on and they played rock songs, just little bits of rock songs throughout. That was what, a 5-10 minute session? I don't know what it was, but I was just so intrigued, and it was absolutely amazing. The talent of just not country music, but every genre of music, really.
Yeah, and I've put together this band, and I think I'm the only real country music person in the band. My drummer and both guitar players came from a rock band. Our bass player played in a lot of rock bands. He was in a Rush cover band, and Brooke, she was just classically trained on the violin. So really nobody grew up playing country music. So I got all these kind of rockers, and then Brooke on classical instrument that we just play country music. So once in a while, that we call it the rock out. We give those guys opportunity to kind of tear it loose, and they put together this medley of all these rock songs, and they got, a fiddle song in there. And it's fun for me to leave the stage and those guys just kind of go to it. It's just a change up from what the whole show has been up until that point.
Well, and all of the concerts that I've been to, that to me was, again, intriguing, just because you changed it up. It wasn't just, your songs. You got to be able to throw that together, but it got to let your band show off other talent other than just, doing country music songs, which I thought was freaking amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. We started the band, we were just a cover band. So we grew up playing a lot of, 80s and 90s country. And then, we'd play 90s rock songs and older rock songs. So it's fun to once in a while go back and relearn some of them songs we used to play back in the day and play them, because that's what we kind of started doing, and if I'd have done it different, I don't know if I would have, that kind of gave us our foundation of fans that liked us as a cover band, and they started buying our music that we write. So it's been a fun journey that way anyway.
It's not something I thought I'd ask, but what does it take to, you heard these songs growing up, or I could listen to the radio and sing along, but to relearn these songs or figure them out, how long does it take a person to do that?
Well, not terribly long, but we've grown as musicians. So I mean, the way we played songs, 10 years ago is probably a little different than we're doing today. We're playing a lot of stuff wrong, and dynamics. So I mean, the more you grow as a musician, you go back and oh man, let's make this song sound just like the record, or take our own spin on it even. But it's been fun. Like I said, my whole band are really talented musicians. So it's nice having those guys kind of work them up and say, hey, I want to do this song, and they'll go work it up. And it's typically sounds just like the record, or even our songs. It's fun to make them and sound as good as possible. And sometimes we'll just even go back and relearn some stuff that we've been playing forever of our own stuff. You kind of get in a rhythm and playing it every week and go back to the album and be like, oh man, I think I'm playing that a little wrong. So
Right.
it's just always trying to be really tight and really good.
Little tweak here, a little tweak there, and just
Yeah.
and I guess the thing about it, and even with you Rodeo and me Rodeo, and you always can better yourself, whether it's a tweak here, a tweak there. And if you ever get to the point, which I know you know this, to where you don't try to perfect yourself, I think you're done as far as a rodeo cowboy, especially.
Same with music. You know, everybody we open for, like this last week, we opened for let's see, Tracy Lawrence, you know, who's one of the greatest of all time,
Yep.
and then Parker McCollum. So like I always go out and watch the shows after we're done. Just like you pick up on some things that people are doing better than you. And if like you said, once you get to thinking you're the best, it's probably over. So for me, I've never stopped learning. I mean, I'll go quiz the sound guys about stuff or the guitar
Right.
tech of other bands, and like just kind of try to learn a few tricks because you know we grew up in the part of the world where there's not a music scene. You know, there wasn't a music scene in Wyoming, so we had to learn everything from scratch, which you know took a little longer than some other artists that maybe grew up in Nashville or Texas where there's a bunch of music going on all the time. So like even to this day, I go watch whoever we open for or playing with and just try to pick up on a few tricks.
Well, you got a new release just what 3 days ago. It ain't you. How
Yeah.
are I guess I wouldn't even know how to judge, but I mean, how do you? First off, congratulations on the new release because
Oh,
I
thanks.
think all your stuff coming out is amazing. But how's it been going with since the release?
Really good. You know, we just kind of track the numbers and it's been streaming really good. And, you know, it's just a fun up tempo song that we thought we'd put out in the summer. I think I had it recorded almost a year ago. We are trying to find a good slot to release it. You know, nowadays with Spotify and stuff, they have this algorithm that they want you to try to follow. So every like 6, 8 weeks, put out a new single. It kind of drives that algorithm. So we're trying to stay on course with that. And, you know, at the end of the day, all these numbers and stuff that they're judging everything on in Nashville are important. But like for us, we're still kind of old school. Like we judge our stuff off live shows and how fans react live. And people are paying their hard earned money as a ticket to come see you. So streaming is what it is. Once again, our part of the world, you know, Wyoming, South Dakota, Montana, there's not everybody streams. Like a majority of our
Cowboys.
fan base. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, hey, can I get your CD or your tape or whatever? So, I mean, a lot of times they're fans and just come to your shows. So, I mean, it's been really good. But we're trying to play the Spotify game and the algorithm and stuff. And so we're just trying to put out a song every 6, 8 weeks. And we got a bunch we recorded a couple weeks ago in Nashville that'll be done here this fall. And then we'll probably track again this fall and just try to stay ahead of the game and always have a lot of songs ready to be put out.
Does that and I guess I don't know anything about the industry, but if you have to put them out every 6 to 8 weeks, and so you don't want to put crap out, so you have to put in the effort to make sure what you're putting out is amazing. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you start putting out just okay, we need to put this out, and it's you don't feel like it's a great song, but we need to fill this void, that could hurt your career more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you always have to have good quality, and now they want quantity too. So I always go in and record a whole bunch of songs at once, you know, 6 or 8 or 10, and then do that again a few months later. So I always have a good batch. Then you kind of sort through them. You know, sometimes you write a song, you think it's going to be awesome. By the time you record it, you're like, I don't love it as much as I did, and maybe that'll just be an album track. But you know, and just like you said, always learning. You know, I've done the last 3 albums with Trent, and it's been great. And I wouldn't be where I am without Trent. But Bryce Long, who's also a big writer in Nashville, he's producing this next batch of songs. I wanted to just change it up and see if there's a different sound out there that I'm missing, or if I can better myself some way. You never know until you try it. But these 8 we did last 2 weeks ago in Nashville, I think are maybe the best I've ever done. So we're excited to put the vocals on them next week down there and get them all polished up and be able to put out another batch of songs.
So when you do that, like you have to play them and then put your voice to them. How does that work?
Yeah, so a lot of times, so like we track with the Nashville band, so there's pretty much everybody does. They're called session players. They're just studio players, and then there's live players. So we'll hire these session players. We'll lay down the tracks, and I'll sing in the studio with them. You know, this called a scratch vocal, and then they'll go through and kind of mix them up, get them kind of ready, and then I'll come back, you know, a couple weeks later, and then spend 3 or 4 days making the vocals really good. So like
Right.
you have to sing each song, 20 times, maybe 30 times, just keep singing it over and over again until you have it just like you like it. So, once you put the recording out, it's out forever. So you got to make sure you really like it, because even long after I'm gone, those songs will be on the internet somewhere. So I want to make sure they're right.
That's just nuts. So 20, 30 times. Boy, you got to get a lot of throat lozenges, I bet.
Yeah, you can usually 2 or 3 a day is about all I can get through to make sure I really like them, be fresh the next day.
But back in the day, it probably, which I had Bob Tallman on, it was cigarettes, and Crown Royal loosened up his announcer's voice.
Think all the greatest singers of all time, Merle Haggard and all those guys smoked for years, so maybe that's the trick.
Yeah, and they seem to be fairly successful though, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Got to ride at the daddy of them all, got to, junior, high school, college rodeo, professional. Take us down that path and some of, people that you looked up to. Man,
it was fun. I still miss rodeo to this day, and I think rodeo cowboys that have retired will understand too. It's like, I think it's in your system. You'll never forget about it. Like, I wrestled for a long time, but I don't still dream about wrestling matches. And but I rodeoed, and I still have dreams about getting on. I think it's just something that's with you forever. And so it was such a fun career. My parents took us to all the youth rodeos growing up, 4 years old till we were in junior high. And, we started junior high rodeo and then high school rodeo, and then loved it so much. Went to Casper College on a bronc riding scholarship, rodeoed there for 3 years for Tom Parker, and then went to University of Wyoming to finish my degree and do my 5th year. And, made the high school finals once in the bronc riding and almost made it in the team rope. And I think we were 5th that year. But my main thing, I just liked riding broncs. And I went to college, rode broncs, made the college finals twice, and then went for a little bit after college, pro rodeoing. And yeah, I loved it. I just kind of got to a point where I had to make a decision. It was really hard to do both at the same time, because trying to be successful in rodeo, as everybody knows, takes all your time up. And if you do it, you really have to go hard and practice hard and go for it. And I think I was split my time between music and rodeo. But man, I loved riding saddle broncs. It was fun. And getting to ride at Cheyenne was super special. My dad won Cheyenne in 1971, won the rookie bronc riding. So me and my brothers always wanted to be like dad, and it was just, I miss getting on. I get that question a lot, like, what's more fun, singing or riding broncs? And that feeling right when you're calling the chute right before you nod is a feeling that is second to nothing. Like, you can't replicate that. Even stepping on stage in front of 20,000 people or whatever, it's not quite the same as that adrenaline rush right before you nod. It's probably the same in the bulldog, and like, you don't know what's going to happen. It's an unknown thing. A concert, you fairly good what's going to happen typically, but it's just, I think that rodeo is in your system forever. I don't think I'll ever forget or never not think about daily. It's just, and the lifestyle is fun, which is a lot like music. So, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. We travel in buses from town to town, it's same as traveling in a Capri camper. Going back, say
your accommodations are a little bit different than in the Capri, but
they got a little better. But we just hired so many people, I don't think we could all fit in a Capri camper anymore. But
but that might be tough on the band. They're not used to that rodeo lifestyle.
They're not. We've got a little soft in our older age. I don't think we could go back to staying at 10 people in a Motel 6, but it's been fun, and I was happy with my rodeo career, just kind of wish I'd have done it harder for a couple more years, because it's a young man's game. So knowing what I know now, maybe I would have rodeoed a couple more years and really went for it to see what the future held. I don't know if I'd have done better or worse, but I guess those things you think about in the back of your mind, that if you're young and going for it, take it in now, because once you, especially in the bronc riding or rough stock events and bulldogging, there's an age where your body can't take it as much, and you're not quite as quick. I was on the phone with Billy Sutton just a little while ago. We're talking about these young bronc riders, like they're just so much quicker and faster, and everything moves faster, and you get bucked off easier. And it's definitely a young man's game, but it was fun.
Well, and you got to rodeo, I mean, Wyoming, South Dakota, that's some of the greatest bronc riders in the world. You got to rodeo and compete against some of those toughs.
Yeah, it was fun. My era was like, Sandy Bob Forbes and
Yep.
Bryce Miller and lot of guys that had made the finals a lot. And I remember getting into college, and if you weren't in the high 70s or mid 80s, you weren't placing. I struggled for a couple of years of my freshman sophomore year of college just because it was, a big change. It's probably like, going from college to the pros, and nowadays in the bronc riding, if you're not 90, you're not placing. It's getting pretty wild. Like everybody, the top 50 ride that good. So I'm glad I'm not riding anymore.
Well, to that point, since I've retired, watching these guys bull. Now, I will say I'll critique the hell out of them, that
Right.
armchair quarterback type style. But, man, you're exactly right. These guys, and I think I talk about it almost on every show, how it's went from rodeo to an actual sport, the sport of rodeo, where these guys are training their bodies to be athletes, instead of, and, we talked about smoking and drinking beer and whiskey, but these guys, they don't do that near as much now. It's more of a businessman's game.
For sure. And it shows, you take like Casey Field and those guys that have, they train for it. You can tell the people that are winning are the guys training, but it's smart. It's no different than being a football player or basketball player. The greatest in those fields have trained all the time. So like hindsight, maybe I should have been training a little bit more for rodeo versus like, where's the closest beer stand?
And more power to these guys for seeing that and taking advantage of that so they could have their body in the best shape possible to go win. And you're right, Casey Field, watching his Instagram stories and all that, it's unbelievable the work he puts into it. And not just him. I mean, maybe not the team ropers. Anyway, but just the effort that they're putting in outside of the arena so they could, excel inside of it.
Yeah, for sure. And even the mental game, like I've heard Casey on a lot of podcasts. I mean, he's just mentally tough. Like he just knows he's going to win. I mean, granted, you don't want to ever be arrogant about it, but I try to use that in music. When we take the stage, like stuff Casey says, like, just know you're the best, but don't act like it. Just know it. You got to tell yourself you're the best. And so like, it's hard to train yourself to not act like it, but just know that you're good at what you do. Cause if you don't believe it, nobody's going to believe it. So, it's inspiring to see some of these rodeo cowboys are some of the best athletes in the world.
You have to be great, but you got to be humble. And I could, with you saying that, knowing you're the best, every time I'd ride in the box, and it didn't matter if it was a $500 at a rodeo or the 10th round at the national finals, I would, under my breath, just keep repeating to myself, I'm a winner, I'm the best, I'm a winner, I'm the best.
Right.
And you have to have that mentality. You prove to them that you're a winner and you're the best. You don't have to say it. And if you do your job right, you don't have to speak it. You don't have to talk about it.
For sure. Like when I was wrestling, I had it in my mind. I was just trained that nobody could beat me. Was there people that beat me? For sure. And I had that in bronc riding in high school and college. I didn't think there was a horse that could buck me off. I may have not been 80 every time, but I just in my head had myself trained that like, there's no way this horse is bucking me off. Was there a horse that bucked me off? For sure. But like every time I nodded, I had no doubt in my mind I was going to ride this. I was either going to be 60 or 80, but he wasn't going to throw me off. And I think back and trying to relate that to music now, just knowing that like, hey, go out here and give the best performance ever. You're Garth Brooks out here, or whoever, go be the best. But is there better? For sure. But if you got to believe it yourself, I think that, or you're going to safety up or be apprehensive about stuff. You got to really go for it mentally and physically, and especially in rodeo.
Well, in the rodeo world, if you safety up or you're apprehensive, that's a cause for, disaster right there. I mean, as well as anybody, you can't back down.
And it's in rodeo, I would say in the bronc ride and probably the bulldogging too, it's a split second thing.
Yeah.
If you safety up for a split second, that might cost you the whole ride or the whole run. And it's almost subconscious, in my opinion. Like if you're not believing it, you won't safety up. But if you're not really believing it, if there's just one tiny hiccup, it's going to ruin the whole deal. Things happen that fast.
If you're apprehensive and you're thinking about it, you can't let that muscle memory react to the situation.
For sure.
So I'm up on the spot a little bit. Who is the best bronc rider going right now?
Man, that's hard. Like I would say I really like the way Stetson rides. I think he's typically flawless. But like I said, I was on the phone with Billy Sutton today. It's hard to find flaws in a lot of those guys. Lefties riding so tough. Q Taylor, the Canadian that's living in Casper, like I picked Q to win Cheyenne yesterday, and he would have, but they set the arena record 92.5 in the bronc riding. So I was like, and that horse is so good, but it's hard to pick, But I would say, lefty rides real tough. Stetson, obviously, Q Taylor. I could probably just list 25 that all ride about the same. It's hard to. It's really fun watching.
It's funny you mentioned those names, and a guy that I've always thought has been impressive is Wyoming native Brody Kress. And forgive me for not knowing his name. I should. I don't have it in front of me. He set the arena record at Cheyenne, and this is a guy that maybe isn't as well known in the rodeo business, but when you set the record at Cheyenne, you know that you're doing it right, and there's only big things to come in your future.
I know. That's the thing. And, Brody rides so tough. Like, see, Brody was from Wyoming. He's a 3-time state champion wrestler. Like, Brody's just an athlete.
Right.
It's like you can I just watch him ride. I just know he's a wrestler because he's just, he bears down. But there's just so many, like Zeke, when the dust settles, when Zeke's done, he might go down in history as the best bronc rider ever. I think somebody told me the other day he's rode every horse this year. Like, it's unbelievable. Wow. Like, I don't know if that's true, but somebody's like, he's 100% for this year. I'm like, man, and the caliber of horses those guys are getting on to not have been bucked off one is pretty impressive. But, Zeke's got several world titles under his belt. And I think when the dust settles, we might look back someday and be like, he might be going down as one of the best bronc riders of all time. Well, I mean, he already is, but maybe the best. I don't know.
Yeah. It's looking at getting inducted in the Hall of Fame this year, and now looking at the guys that are coming behind me that are going to be there. Zeke Thurston is obviously one of them. Casey Field is another one. And I guess growing up, I never thought of the Hall of Fame or even thought about, okay, who's going to go into it. But now that just getting put in, I could look back and say, these guys all are going to be there eventually. Right. And being able to look at their career now and what it was it's pretty cool. Just, I guess, the hindsight or retrospect of being put in now,
Yeah, you can see the future Hall of Famers that are going today. You're like, that guy's gonna be in the Hall of Fame today. It's pretty neat to know them and see them perform. It's rodeo's such a cool sport, and it's there again in music. I want to tell that story to the rest of the world that don't know rodeo. Like, go see some rodeos, go see some future Hall of Famers, because like it's an unbelievable sport. It's such a big family. Everybody in the rodeo world knows everybody, and I'm so fortunate that I got to grow up ranching and rodeoing and still be able to be in that circle of rodeo people playing music. We get to play all these rodeos, so I get to see Zeke and Stetson and all the boys at every rodeo we play. So that's special to me that I'm still kind of rodeoing. I just don't have to get on anymore, I guess.
It doesn't hurt near as bad, I guess, right?
Well, sometimes we wake up feeling that way in music, but it's not from getting on bucking horses.
That's the Crown Royal, right?
Yeah. Like, damn, did I roll my ankle last night? Huh.
So I want to transition now into, and you're an independent artist, correct? You don't have a big company representing you or anything like that, because with that comes, I guess, you not being able to do the music, play the music.
Yeah, so the music business is crazy. The longer I've been in it, the more I learned about it. We just started out playing because we enjoyed playing it, and we still enjoy playing. That's why we're still doing it. But it's a tough old deal. So we've always been independent. I have 7 albums out of my own and got an 8th almost in the can ready to put out. But we've never been signed to a major deal. And the way the world has changed over the years, used to record deals would sell records. That's how they made money. But now with the streaming and stuff, basically a record deal for us nowadays would look at if they can get us national radio. And so, I mean, there's X amount of hours in a day. So there's X amount of songs that can be played in a day. So all these record labels are fighting for slots of whose songs on the radio. So, I mean, if we can be guaranteed, a hit song on radio, we would look at signing with a record label. But, we've already got a successful touring business. We put out our own records. So all that's working. I have 13 guys that work for me. So, I mean, we have a successful business model going. Do we want to go to the next level? For sure. But also not going to sign away my life and everything that we've done up to this point just to have a record deal. I mean, if they could guarantee me national radio, sure. But that's all money, man. I mean, these record labels there's things that go on in the music business to get on radio. So, I mean, there's labels and stuff that, there's exchanges of money that I think help you get on radio. And, being on a label's probably what you need to do. But, we've always wanted to have our best foot forward. So, always want to have the good music ready. So this next batch of 8, maybe there's something in there that does play on radio, so we'll see. I just don't know, but it's been nice doing it our way. We've kind of done it the opposite way of some other artists that maybe move to Nashville and hack it out for 8 or 10 years and get a record deal and start from scratch. We kind of did it the opposite way of, say, like Chris Ledoux did it. You go out and you build a fan base and you just keep playing as much as possible. Get fans, one fan at a time, and those fans will follow you around forever. Our fan base is the reason we're where we're at today, is just because, like, they'll drive 8 hours to come see us. We already have that established. So all we need, if we needed to merge something with some Nashville stuff at this point, we probably would if it was right for the business, but also not going to give up half or 3/4 of everything we make just to have a record deal. I mean, we're getting lots of dates and we're on records and we're streaming. So, I mean, it's been good, but not gonna sell out, I guess.
Well, and I think, I can't remember, maybe it was you or it might have been Jenna Paulette, or I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but the record companies own a lot of the radio stations. I mean, is that right? So if you don't sign with this record company, you won't be able to be put on radio over here. And that's where I guess you kind of get hamstrung.
It is true. I mean, I don't know if the record labels directly own the radio stations. I don't think they do, but they definitely control what's on there. So, I mean, there's behind the scenes stuff that takes place that, saying, hey, man, if you play Chancey stuff 5 times a day, we'll help you out over here. We'll get you, some backstage pass with Taylor Swift. I mean, it's the good old boy club, I think, in Nashville a lot, and just trying to be a part of that enough to where they don't own you, So, I mean, we have a lot of good things going in Nashville. Our booking agents, WME, which is William Morris Endeavor, and they're the biggest booking agent in the world. So, I mean, they're on our team. We got a few other people on our team in Nashville that there's some things coming, I think, that we're excited about, and just keep building it. But, at the end of the day, we're excited to know that we did it our way. And did it take a little long, a little harder? Sure. But I feel like it means more to us. We've never really had anybody just throw us a bone to make things work easy. So it don't matter what it is. It's kind of always been uphill for us. But at the end of the day, we can look back like, well, we did everything we thought would work, and it worked, or it didn't. Either way, we just knew we did it our way, and we didn't have to answer to anybody. And we have true fans out there that we didn't just get famous on TikTok and all of a sudden have all these fans. We have real fans that like us for who we are. And that means more to me than anything.
When you stayed to your roots, you stayed, authentic to the Western culture, the Western way of life. Me as a cowboy or rancher appreciates that more so than people know or you guys know that what you're doing for the industry.
And that's the thing. At the end of the day, I just want to be remembered for, like, staying who I was and not being something I wasn't. I think there's a lot of artists out there. It'd have been easy over the last few years. There's a 10-year span there of like music like Florida Georgia Line, and that was really good for them. They made a lot of money, or people like that. That just wasn't us. Like, I sound like this, I sing this way, and we just kind of stuck to our guns. And I think the cream rises to the top. At the end of the day, want to be remembered as an authentic cowboy from Wyoming that represented his state and the cowboy way of life the right way, And so, like, if we go play somewhere in California, where, in the city or something, I want to be known as like authentic, genuine cowboy. And that's all I am. So I don't have to fake it. I always tell people, I don't sing about stuff I don't know about. I'm not going to write a song about NASCAR. I don't know anything about it. People would see right through it. So once again, just being authentic and, just trying to represent Cowboys in the state of Wyoming the best way we can is my goal.
One of your songs, Fast in Town, that song had so much meaning for me because the way you sing, the way you talk about it.
Yeah, me and Trent were sitting around talking about it. We were actually talking about what we were about the bronc riding being so deep. And I said, it don't matter if the number 50 guy or the number 2 guy, whoever's in first, somebody's always gunning for him. It's like, we kind of wrote it about Stetson, I mean, everybody loves Stetson. He's such an athlete, but he's got that 1 on his back number. And if you're number 2 or number 50 or number 100, you're always shooting for the guy in first. And we're like, so we kind of spun it as kind of an old West, back if you're the fastest gun in town, if somebody's always going to come shooting at you. So it worked out good. The back number is kind of like a target, but it's just the way it is. It's competition. If you're the best football player, if you're whoever's the Patriots or whatever back in the day, somebody's always trying to beat you. And so it turned out to be a fun rodeo song. It fits both ends of the arena. Yeah. And so it's, when you nod your head, if you're number 1, somebody's gunning for you.
They're always gunning for you. And that's what I've always talked to people about. They said, after you won your world championship, how did you stay fired up to try to go win another one and keep motivated? I said, because when they gave you that buckle after the 10th go round, you started back at 0, just like everybody else that bought their card that had that same goal. So to maintain that, I had to go out and try to prove to myself and everybody else that I was the best without even working what I just won. I mean, that was great. I'd won that. It was awesome. But it didn't matter once the new year started.
And that's the way you got to think of it. You can't just be like, well, I did it. If you want to keep being successful, you got to go for it. I remember I won state in wrestling my junior year, and I came back my senior year just a little cocky. Maybe thought I was better than I was. I mean, first tournament, this kid from Buffalo, South Dakota pinned me faster than I didn't even know what happened. I was like, wow, best thing that ever happened to me. I bared down the rest of the year. I was like, okay, I got to start over. Nobody cares that you won state last year. That's over. Yeah. I remember getting pinned so fast. I was like, what the hell just happened? It's like, well, looks like I better step up and learn how to wrestle again.
Yeah, my eye opener was in 04. I won my first gold buckle. And then I don't know that I had to the spring. So when Denver started all the way to maybe Oakdale in April, so January to April, I don't know that I had $5,000 won in the world standings. And, at that day, I won the world. I was kind of walking around like, they don't give you shit. You have to.
They don't care.
No, they don't. It doesn't matter. And from that point on, fortunately, the spring, which was home circuit, California, which I'd had a lot of success, I had to sit down and have a good sit down talk to myself. Like, okay, how did I get to where I won a world championship? Now I'm not even in the top 50 for the next year. You have to. From that point on, it was it didn't matter who you were, how much you won. You better go do your best every steer you run. And for me, I think that helped me become as successessful as I was. Just knowing that you can't take anything for granted. You got to earn.
No, it starts over, and everybody's gunning for you. It's like, well, so you got to bear down.
Yeah, it's a couple of the other songs that I obviously everybody and I really enjoy is "The World Needs More Cowboys," because that is the state of where we're at now. I mean, that song rings true so much, and people are seeing that the cowboy way of life is genuine, it's true, and people appreciate that.
Well, like we wrote that before COVID, and me and Trent, and it's more true after the way the world has been the last few years. It's like standing up for people, and be a cowboy and stand up for what's wrong, and stop letting people push people around. And you don't necessarily have to be a cowboy or wear a cowboy hat for that song to ring true. It's just the way of life that Cowboys lead. Like if the world had more people like us that, do stand up for what's wrong and do speak up when it's wrong. That's what that song's about. It's not necessarily about just being a cowboy or a cowgirl. It's that way of life that we lead, that always trying to do the right thing and help other people out, and not getting wrapped up in this crazy world we live in where it's just unbelievable. Just knowing right from right and wrong from wrong. So that's one of my favorite songs we've ever wrote, and it works well. It gets played at a lot of rodeos, which we're super excited about.
Right. Well, and then come to rodeo time. And I know we've talked about that rodeo kind of being an intro to the rodeo, or, you know, leading up to the rodeo, and how much effort you put into that song for that reason.
Yeah, we wrote that. You know, I was telling Trent one day, I was like, you know, world needs more cowboys and fastest gun. And some of these songs have been real successful at rodeos. And for us, it's almost like getting radio play. So, I mean, they play it at Cheyenne in front of 20,000 people a couple times a day. That's like, you know, 40,000 people hearing it. So, like, I was like, we need to have let's just write a really up tempo opener, like the hot song or whatever they call them. And like, let's make it like kind of like a rock song, because you got to get people excited at the intros of rodeo. And, you know, I was like, when the rodeo starts, it's rodeo time. So it's like, all right. So we made it kind of like an 80s rock song. It's just, and it's, we haven't even worked it up live yet. I just kind of put it out. I was like, as soon as it was out, I sent it to a few of the music directors and said, hey, see what you think. If you like it, play it. And it's been getting a lot of traction as the opening song. And that's what we wrote it for.
Well, I mean, even for the podcast, it you know, it rings true to what I'm trying to bring. You know, it's time to be excited, time to listen to these stories of all these guys, and I appreciate, you know, like I said, you letting us use your music to do that, because one thing about it is, if you can get people excited through a song, you got them hooked for the rest of the rest of the time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you using it. It's a fun one, and yeah, just we put it on the new record.
And thank you for coming on. I know we tried it once and had a little technical difficulty, but thanks for coming on again. And I honestly feel like you coming on this time was better for me, because getting to know you, and now obviously considering you a friend and a fan, you know, it just made it so much better. And
rodeo guys, rodeo's entertainment, you know, TV's entertainment, music. So we're all in the entertainment business. So it's fun to interact with. I see Flint once in a while, and, you know, everybody's that's been in rodeo, they're entertainers just like we are on stage, or you are now on TV. So it's fun to bridge that gap to the rest of the world, to show them what Cowboys are about.
That's it, man. Well, good luck to you, and we'll have to catch up again.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Luke. Thanks for everything.
You bet. Thanks, Chancey.
And congrats on the Hall of Fame.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, that's still
awesome.
Kind of unbelievable. I liked.
Dude, that's awesome. It's unbelievable. Who'd have thought? Did you ever dream about when you were a little kid being in the Hall of Fame?
No, I never thought about being in the Hall. I always thought it was always about winning for me. You know, go out and try to win most I can, the best I could. And, you know, when I got the call, I was like, damn, I'm pretty young to have this honor bestowed on me. So,
neat.
Yeah, it's very cool, but I appreciate it. Yeah, it's dang sure one hell of a ride.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Chancey.